this video is to review some stuff about strings and help you get ready for the strings quiz. All right, so the first thing is I have a few review questions for you here to try to see if you remember these different string methods. But please remember, or not please remember, but here they do it a little bit differently. So like normally they'll do like string, right, give it a name or whatever, equals muffins. That would create a string that is just has the letters muffins in it, and then they would call str.substring of 5. Okay, so what you see here is just a different way to do that. So this creates the string, and then they're calling a substring on it right away. So they want to know like what is returned by doing that, right? So it's similar to what you see here, just a little different, and if hopefully that clears it up. So pause the video here and see if you can figure out 1, 2, 3, 4 what is going to be returned, or if we were to print these out, what would be printed out. So pause the video, give it your best shot. Okay, so what that equals checks is the string here the same as this one, and it checks for the same letters and also the same upper and lower case. So this one would actually be true because the two strings are exactly the same. Index of finds the first occurrence of the substring in the given string. So for us, the is right here, and so we just have to figure out where does it start. So it's going to start here, and so if we count, this is 0, 1. Remember, we start counting from 0. So 0, the space is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So it looks like the T starts at position 5. It's technically the 6th letter, but it would be position 5 because we start counting from 0. Okay, and then if it's not in there, if index of does not find it in there, so abracadabra is not in this string, so then it just returns -1. Basically, it did not find it. Okay, so substring, there's two different types. The one that takes in just a single input parameter takes from that position all the way to the end. So we just have to figure out sort of the position. So we're going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So the N is the 5th position. So it's going to take from the 5th position all the way to the end, which in this case is just NS. Okay, so up next for you is some more review questions. And these are going to be found in the Chapter 2 folder, and you're looking for this thing that says Review for Strings Quiz. This might look a little bit different on Schoology because of how I've set up the folders. So just know that it doesn't look exactly like that, but you're looking for a Review for String Quiz. Right, so try those, and then you can unpause this video, and I'll go through the answers with you. So pause it, give those a shot, complete that little puzzle piece before moving on. All right, so here are your questions, and the problem with this first one here is that the age never has an initial value, right? So right here, when you do not in quotes like this, it's going to print out the value of that variable, but we never give it a value. We do int age, but we never say what it's equal to. Okay, so generally you'd want to do like int age and then give it an initial value of 15 or okay, so the problem is it's never, that's called initialize, never given an initial value. And you can declare it like this. I guess if you did it the way they did here, you could give it a value later by just doing that. So if I put this line right there, then I would have declared it and then initialized it on the second line, and then we would have been okay. Okay, so I always go step by step here. So we're doing the length of Jarvis. So what I like to do on this actually, and I highly recommend this, even though you don't have to, but I lift out JARVIS and then 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So I just label the letters. And so the length is going to be 6 actually, because it's 6 long. And so then when I do the substring, I'm going from length minus 2, so I'm going from 4 to 6. So that would be right like this. And remember, substring does run one past. So this is just going to return. So this string is going to be the I and the S. Sorry, those are quotes if you can't see that. So it's just going to, when we print it out, it's just going to print out the IS. right? And so that is working correctly. It seems like you kind of ran past the end of the string, but for substring, you do want to run one past, right? When you use the two variable substring like this, it runs one past. All right, so when you're using scanner, all right, so one of the tricks is this requires a double. So like the error here would be, I would just say something like if the user types in a word like or something, then it's going to error out, right? Because it expects a double, and if you type a word, it'll bomb out. And again, we're not going to really worry in this course too much how to handle a situation like that. Just kind of beyond the scope of this class. Okay, so we've got the two variable types. We've got primitives and we've got objects, right? So int and doubles are primitive, and then string and scanner are objects. And so some of the differences, so I'm just going to say basically primitives are what their name says, basic variable types, okay? And then objects are more advanced, okay? And then objects are created with the new keyword. Okay, so like when we do scanner, we do scanner, scan equals new scanner, and then system.in. We're using that new keyword there, right? Which you don't do with a primitive. And then I'd say the other big difference, well, an easy way to tell is objects start with a capital letter. Oh, I forgot one other big one. Yeah, and then objects, you use dot operators to call methods. Okay, like with the scanner, you call scan.nextInt or scan.nextLine, right? And you don't do that with a primitive. You can't do something dot with a primitive, but with a object, you definitely use those dot operators. All right, last thing I want to review with you for the quiz today is these are a couple of sample AP questions related to strings and substrings, and they do get pretty complex. All right, so well, I guess one thing that's kind of hard is we don't know what a method is yet. So I just got to explain it a little bit here. So what happens is we have a method called scramble. So far, all our programs have just had a main method, but this is one that has scramble, and it takes in a string variable called word and an int variable called how far. And so what this question is asking is what's going to happen, and it's kind of like a print, except they call it return. So they want to know what will be returned when we call it with compiler and int of 3. So in this case, word is compiler, and how far is 3. Okay, so we want to know what will happen here when we pass in compiler and 3. So it looks like it's going to return a substring plus another substring. All right. And so again, I'm going to start off by just listing out compiler here. So I'm going to do, because our word coming in is compiler. Okay, and the positions are 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. All right. So see if you can figure out what's going to happen with these two substring calls, and then maybe take your best shot at which letter it would be. Pause the video, give it a shot. First substring is how far plus 1, so that would be 4. How far is 3, so that would be 4. And then word dot length would be 8. So our word is compiler and its length is 8. So this is going to be a substring from 4 to 8. Again, substring 1's one pass, so that's going to be idler. Okay, and then it's going to do that plus, take a different color here, position 0 to how far, so 0 to 3, because how far is 3. And so again, it runs one pass, so that's going to take the com part. Okay, so this is going to return, which is kind of like print, except the method just returns a string. But anyways, it's going to return that, so it's Euler, which would be letter C. All right, one more AP type question for you. Okay, so what happens here is this is another method called contains art. It returns a Boolean, so it's going to return either true or false. And then we're going to have 3 strings coming in. All right, and it's basically saying, do any of the strings contain the word art? So what it's going to do is it's going to add the strings together here. And then it's basically going to say, well, if the index of is not equal to 1 in the strings, then it's going to not contain art. So basically, it's going to return if it's not equal to -1, then it's going to return true. And if it does, then it returns false. Okay, so it's saying, doing the index of to see if art is in there at all. Okay, so this is kind of tricky because, generally, like, let's see an example. Like, we would want B to return true because we have art right there, right? Actually, we have art right there and there, so we'd want to return true. Something like C would be false because there's not art in any of these. So one of them does not work as intended, right? We're trying to say true or false, do any of the words contain art? And you got to figure out what's the trick. So pause the video. It's a good thinking question to try and help you figure it out. Okay, so I think what's going to happen is A is the right answer here because this should return false. If we look at it, none of the words have art. This doesn't have art in it. No art here, no art here. However, when you make it into one big string, there's no spaces between them. So right here is actually going to be art. The last 2 letters of similar and the first letter of today make art. So when you smash it all together, you'll have art. But realistically, none of the words actually contain art. So our method is a little bit flawed because of that problem. All right, and so you could kind of pause the video and think, how could you fix this? Like, what would be an easy fix? All right, and hopefully you figure out the right fix is if you add like spacing in. So if you do plus space between the words, add spacing there, and I think that would fix the problem. Okay, that is it. Thanks for watching.